The Special Forces captain was already dying by the time anyone realized the hospital had made a catastrophic mistake, and the only person who could save them was the nurse they had banned, the one whose name administrators refused to say out loud anymore, the one they had erased from schedules and scrubbed from emails as if she were a bad memory. But as alarms screamed and blood pooled beneath the gurney, Captain Aaron Cole forced his eyes open, grabbed a medic by the sleeve, and whispered 5 words that froze the entire trauma bay. Asterisk, fetch the nurse they banned. Asterisk, the fluorescent lights of St. Matthew's Medical Center flickered overhead at 1:47 a.m., that dead hour where confidence thins and exhaustion sharpens tempers, and the ER was already stretched to breaking when the unmarked SUV screeched into the ambulance bay, doors flying open as men in civilian clothes, but military posture hauled out a stretcher bearing a tall, broad-shouldered man in tactical gear soaked dark with blood. No sirens, no radio call ahead, just controlled chaos and the unmistakable gravity that followed special operations wherever they went. Doctors rushed forward, barking orders, annoyed at first, until they saw the wound. Shrapnel embedded high in the chest, entry small, damage invisible, the kind of injury that lied until it killed you. BP's dropping, a nurse called. He's tacky, sets unstable. Captain Cole's face was gray, jaw clenched against pain, but his eyes tracked everything, sharp even as his body failed him. Dr. Marcus Bell, the attending surgeon, took command with practiced arrogance, flipping through scans, dismissing the unease crawling up his spine. Prep for exploratory, he snapped. We'll open him up and find the bleed. Someone hesitated. Sir, the imaging doesn't line up. Bell glared. Then the imaging's wrong. They moved fast, too fast, the kind of speed that looked like competence, but wasn't, and every intervention made things worse. Blood pressure crashed again. The monitor screamed. Cole gasped, his hand shooting out with sudden strength, fingers locking onto a young medic's sleeve. No, he rasped, voice shredded. Stop. They leaned in, assuming delirium, the usual deathbed confusion. You're okay, Captain, someone said. Cole shook his head weakly, eyes blazing with clarity born of battlefields, not hospitals. You don't know this wound, he whispered. You don't know what you're touching. Bell scoffed. He's hypotensive and bleeding out. Cole sucked in a wet breath, tasting blood. You're going to kill me, he said calmly, not accusing, just stating fact. Silence rippled for half a second before Bell snapped. Enough. Sedate him. Cole tightened his grip, panic flashing, not fear of death, but of dying stupidly. Get her, he forced out. The nurse. What nurse? The medic asked, voice shaking now. Cole's eyes flicked to the ceiling, then back. The one you banned, he whispered, and something about the certainty in his tone made the room go very, very quiet. A charge nurse stiffened. A resident swallowed hard. Bell's face darkened. Absolutely not, he said. That woman is not allowed on this floor. Another alarm blared as Cole's heart rhythm faltered. Blood welled where it shouldn't. We don't have time for this, Bell snapped. She violated protocol. Cole coughed, red spraying across his oxygen mask. She violated protocol, he echoed faintly. Because protocol gets people like me killed. His grip slackened. I've bled like this before, he murmured. She's the only one who knew where not to cut. The medic looked between Bell and the captain, torn. Somewhere deep in the hospital, behind locked doors and buried grievances, a name hovered unspoken, Emma Cade. 6 months ago, she had been escorted out by security after an incident, her badge clipped, her locker cleared before she could come back from lunch. Officially, it was insubordination. Unofficially, it was humiliation. She had overruled a surgeon in front of witnesses. She had taken control. She had been right. The patient had lived. The surgeon's reputation had not recovered. Administration chose the easier wound to cauterize. Now, as Captain Cole's blood pressure dropped to levels that made seasoned trauma staff pale, the hospital faced a different kind of reckoning. We need to open him up, Bell insisted, hands already gloved. If we don't act, if you act, Cole interrupted weakly. You trigger the bleed. Bell froze. What did you say? Cole's breathing was shallow now, words dragged up from somewhere deep. Fragment migrated, he whispered. Not where you think. She saw it once. In Ramadi. The medic's eyes widened. Sir, who is she? Cole's gaze softened for a second, something like trust flickering there. "The reason I'm still alive," he said. His heart rate spiked, then dipped dangerously low. "You banned her," he briefed. "Now go get her." The room fractured into motion and argument. Bell swearing. A nurse already running for the phone. Administration protocols collapsing under the weight of a dying man who knew exactly what he needed. Outside, rain lashed the windows, and somewhere across the city, a woman who thought she was done with hospitals, done with saving men who broke in her hands, was about to be dragged back into the one place that never forgave her for being right. By the time anyone reached Emma Cade, the hospital had already burned through every safe option and most of its pride, and she knew it before the words were fully out of the administrator's mouth, because desperation has a sound, a thin edge that cuts through excuses, and she heard it the moment the caller said, "There's a captain here asking for you." A pause thick with regret, and he's crashing. Emma stood in the supply room of a free night clinic on the south side, hands smelling of antiseptic, mind quiet in the way it only got when she was far from operating rooms and egos. And for 3 seconds she considered saying no, considered letting St. Matthew's live with the consequences of the choice it had made 6 months earlier when security walked her out like a criminal for saving a life the wrong way. But then the caller added, almost reluctantly, "He specifically asked for the nurse." They banned, and the past came roaring back. The drive was silent, rain streaking the windshield as memories replayed uninvited. Dr. Bell's red face. The boardroom meeting where words like protocol and chain of command were used like shields. The unspoken truth that she had embarrassed the wrong person. When she arrived, security didn't stop her this time. They barely looked at her, eyes fixed forward like soldiers pretending not to recognize an incoming officer. And the ER felt different the moment she stepped inside, like the air itself knew something decisive had entered. She didn't slow, didn't ask permission, didn't acknowledge the stares as she stripped on gloves while walking, already piecing together the puzzle from shouted vitals and half-finished sentences. Captain Aaron Cole lay pale and motionless, monitors screaming what his body no longer could, and Emma saw it instantly. The slight asymmetry of his chest rise, the pressure pattern that didn't belong to a clean internal bleed, the telltale sign of a fragment that had shifted just enough to turn every standard intervention into a death sentence. "Stop the fluids," she said flatly, voice cutting through the noise like a blade. "You're drowning him." Bell spun toward her, fury flaring. "You are not authorized. You already lost authorization when you ignored the scan anomalies." Emma replied without looking at him, fingers pressing lightly at a spot no one else had checked. Cole twitched, a faint sound escaping him. "She's here," someone whispered. Emma leaned close. "I've got you," she said, and for the first time since he'd arrived, Cole's vitals steadied, not improved, just held, like a man gripping a ledge by his fingertips. Bell argued, citing policy, legal exposure, the board, but the room had shifted. Nurses watched Emma, not him, their instincts screaming that this was what competence looked like when it didn't need permission. "The fragment's sitting against the subclavian," Emma said calmly. "If you open him the way you're planning, you shear it. He bleeds out in under a minute." Bell scoffed. "And your solution?" Emma finally looked up. "We don't open him," she said. "We stabilize the pressure gradient, reposition microscopically, and by time until vascular can extract without triggering collapse." Silence followed, the kind that comes when people realize they've been sprinting toward the wrong cliff. "That's not standard," Bell muttered. Emma's eyes were cold, not angry. "Neither is a battlefield," she said. She worked fast but gentle, movements precise, talking as she went, not explaining, commanding, the cadence of someone used to being obeyed when seconds mattered. Slowly, impossibly, Cole's blood pressure climbed into survivable territory. A nurse gasped. "He's stabilizing." Bell stared at the monitors like they'd betrayed him. "Who taught you this?" he demanded. Emma didn't answer. She adjusted one final angle, stepped back, and only then allowed herself to breathe. Cole's eyes fluttered open. He turned his head just enough to see her. "Told them," he whispered hoarsely. "You'd know." Emma nodded once. "You're not clear yet," she said. "But you're not dying anymore." Around them, the ER buzzed with the quiet shock of people realizing they had almost killed a man because the person who could save him made them uncomfortable. And as administrators rushed in with apologies half-formed and lawyers already panicking, Emma stripped off her gloves and stepped back. Already fading from the center of the room, she had just taken over. Bell opened his mouth to speak, whether to apologize or accuse. No one would ever know, but Emma cut him off without looking back. "You don't need to thank me," she said. "And you don't get to pretend you didn't ban me." She paused at the doorway, rain tapping against the glass beyond, the weight of unfinished business pressing in. "Just remember," she added softly, "next time someone like him asked for the nurse you banned, don't make it a debate." By dawn, St. Matthew's Medical Center was quieter than it had been all night, the kind of quiet that settles only after something irreversible has happened, and Captain Aaron Cole lay alive in a monitored room, sedated but stable, his chest rising evenly at last, the monitors now whispering instead of screaming. Word had spread through the hospital in low voices and sideways glances. How close they'd come, how the unauthorized nurse had walked in, and undone hours of confident wrong decisions in minutes. Administrators hovered, drafting statements no one would ever read, while Dr. Bell stood alone at the end of the hallway, staring at a wall as if it might explain how authority had slipped through his fingers without a sound. When Cole finally woke, he asked for water, then for Emma, and when she stepped to his bedside he gave a faint, crooked smile. "Still cutting corners," he murmured. Emma shook her head. "Still ignoring bad plans," she replied, and for a moment the hospital faded away, leaving only two people who had seen each other at their worst and survived it. By noon, a senior military liaison arrived, quiet and precise, speaking to the board behind closed doors. By evening, the ban on Emma Cade was officially reconsidered, though no one used the word apology. Emma didn't wait around for the paperwork. She stood once more in the ER doorway, watching nurses move with a little more confidence, doctors hesitating just a beat longer before dismissing a warning, and she felt something loosen in her chest. Not vindication, not triumph, just closure. She left without ceremony, without an escort this time, rain-washed air filling her lungs as the city woke up around her. Inside, Captain Cole slept, alive because someone had finally listened. And long after Emma was gone, St. Matthew's would remember the night a dying man forced them to confront a truth they'd tried to ban along with her. That competence doesn't ask for permission, and sometimes the difference between life and death is the voice you chose to silence.